We all know the story of Jesus the man. But what about his childhood? It's like a huge blank page in the Bible. Or is it? Turns out some of the very first Christian writings actually do fill in those years. And let me tell you, the picture they paint, it's nothing like the gentle figure we know. It's kind of shocking, actually.
Right, so if you look at the official Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they're surprisingly quiet about Jesus' childhood. I mean, we get his birth, and then there's that one little story when he's 12 at the temple. After that, it's basically radio silence until he's a 30-year-old man. And you can imagine this huge gap left early Christians wondering, okay, so what happened in all those missing years?
And that, my friends, is where these apocryphal Gospels come in. So what are they? Well, they're basically early Christian texts about Jesus that, for one reason or another, didn't make the final cut for the New Testament. It's not like they were all considered crazy or heretical. A lot of them just offered a different kind of story. And get this, they were wildly popular back in the day for that exact reason. They filled in all those juicy blanks. Okay, so let's dive into one of the most famous of these other Gospels. Because this one, it paints an absolutely startling picture of a young Jesus who is, for lack of a better word, a superhero. We're talking about the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. It was written way back in the 2nd century. And what's so fascinating here is that this text was never meant to replace the Gospels we know. It was meant to add to them. It was written to answer that one single burning question. What was the Son of God really like when he was just a kid? And the answer this book gives? Well, let's just say his childhood was anything but ordinary. It was a journey just packed with these incredible displays of divine power right from the very beginning. So the story follows the Holy Family on a path that sounds pretty familiar, right? From Bethlehem to Egypt and then settling in Nazareth. But here's the twist. Unlike the stories we're used to, this version of Jesus isn't just some passive kid being carried around. Oh no, he is an active, powerful force from day one. Here's a great example. While they're on the run in Egypt, the text says the mere presence of the child Jesus causes all the local idols to just crumble into dust. Can you imagine that? He's a toddler, and his power is so immense that it literally shatters the gods of an entire empire without him even having to lift a finger. Wow. And it wasn't just this passive aura of power thing either. As Jesus gets a little older in these stories, he starts to actively use it. He performs this incredible number of miracles. Some of them are really good, and, well, some of them are not so much. Yeah, the stories of his power just start piling up one after another. For instance, he comes across a woman who's being tormented by a demon, and bam, with his mother's pity, the spirit is gone. Then he's at a wedding and the bride has been struck mute by a curse. Just by being in the room, her voice comes back. Simple as that. His power is so potent, so strong, that the water he bathed in, his bath water, is used to cure a girl of leprosy. It makes her completely whole again. And then the miracles start to get, well, truly fantastical. At one point, he runs into a family whose brother had been turned into a mule by a witch. And with just a single word, Jesus turns the mule back into a man. I mean, he is literally reversing a magic spell. But here's where the story takes a really shocking turn. Another kid, another boy, gets mad and stomps on some little pools of water Jesus had made while they were playing. And Jesus, he looks at the boy and says, "Just as that water has vanished, so shall your life." And the text says the boy just withered up and died. Right there. So what are we seeing here? It's like two totally different kinds of power, right? On one hand, you've got these incredible acts of healing, of making things right. But on the other hand, you have this raw, untamed power that's impulsive and, frankly, really dangerous to anyone who gets on his bad side. But it wasn't just about life and death stuff. This young Jesus was also shown as this divine child prodigy, like a master creator who had this unbelievable supernatural knowledge. Probably the most famous story from this whole gospel is the miracle of the sparrows. So Jesus is making these little birds out of clay on the Sabbath, and a man comes by and yells at him for working. What does Jesus do? He just claps his hands. And those 12 little clay birds, they spring to life and fly away chirping. You see, he's not just bending the rules here. He's showing everyone that he is the Lord of all creation. And these creative powers, they pop up in his everyday life too. He's helping his dad, Joseph, in the workshop, and a beam of wood is cut too short. No problem. He just magically stretches it to the right length. Or he helps out a dyer by just tossing a bunch of different cloths into one single vat of indigo dye, and then pulls them out, and each one is a different, perfect color. Amazing.
So as you can probably guess, this kid was impossible to teach. At one point, Joseph sends him to a master to learn his letters, and the teacher is just completely humbled. He realizes, this boy already knows everything. I have nothing to teach him.
I mean, think about this for a second. The teacher asks him to say the first letter of the alphabet, Aleph, or A. And Jesus flips the whole lesson on its head. He starts explaining the deep, mystical, hidden meanings behind the letter itself, talking about things the master had never even dreamed of. He wasn't there to learn anything. He was the source of all knowledge. So, what do we make of all this? What we're left with is this portrait of a child Jesus who is powerful, definitely awe-inspiring, and, let's be honest, a little bit scary. So the real question isn't just what do these stories say, it's why. Why do these stories connect so deeply with the first Christians? At the end of the day, the Infancy Gospel gives us a Jesus who is, without a doubt, 100% divine, right from birth. And you have to remember, for early Christians living in a pretty chaotic world, this vision of a literal God in a child's body who is creative, all-knowing, and yeah, sometimes terrifying, that was a really compelling idea. This is not the gentle, humble Jesus we usually think of. This is a raw force of nature. And that leaves us with one last really fascinating question, doesn't it? For centuries, these stories about a superpowered child God were loved. They were cherished. They gave people a vision of a Jesus who was powerful right from the start. So why? Why did the church eventually choose the Gospels that focused on his humanity, his suffering, and his humility? Why was this version, the more powerful, godlike version of Jesus, left behind? Now that is something to think about.